All right, so everybody, um, so of course, last week you had Volk versus Topuria, um, and I've been hearing everybody say like so many things about Topuria right now, which is as hard of a pill as it is to swallow. It's justified. He's the champ. He beat by the UFC's rankings the number two guy, number two pound for pound. Um, but everybody's saying like, man, I would hate to stand in front of that guy, or um, how he's so young, he's a bull, you know, he's terrifying. Um, but as for everybody, there's going to be somebody that takes him down, takes him out, beats him. You know, Volk had his guy, Taporia has his. So right now, this video, I want to just essentially go over who I am wondering who his next opponent should be. Um, and essentially, I want to kind of mull over these guys' chances at besting him. And right now, of course, Volk is like, oh, I want the rematch as soon as possible. I want to be next in line. I think that's obviously a horrible idea. He got beat in a fair fight. It wasn't even nothing dirty. You know what I mean? No false complaints about eye pokes or groin strikes. No grabbing the fence. No nothing. It was a completely fair fight. He lost, got knocked out. Um, I really don't know what more you can ask for out of a defeat. So, I mean, the first thing, first point to negate the prospect of a Volk rematch is he already beat the guy, you know, knocked him out second round in a 5 round fight. Um, took his time, lost the first round, and as soon as Volk decided he wanted to step into Toporia's ballpark, he he took care of him in that department almost immediately. Um, the other thing is it's too soon. Volk, he just got knocked out 4 months 4 months ago. He got knocked out now. I mean, Taporia doesn't seem to want to be an active champion. I guess that kind of falls in line with being a McGregor wannabe. It would definitely fit the bill. But he he could wait till Taporia is ready to fight and be the first guy to fight him. But it's like, what do you do differently, right? I mean, I think objectively speaking, Volk should have wrestled more. I think that's just the truth. I think that is what everybody was expecting. The kicks were great in the first round, obviously, but why get into a boxing match with a guy who, I mean, he throws low kicks, but I mean, other than that, you're gonna be guaranteed to have a fight with the hands, and why would you want to take that risk? You know, I think I think objectively speaking, logically speaking, he should have wrestled in the second round. Maybe in the next fight he wrestles almost immediately. Um, but it's just What does he do different? And how long does it last? Because the first, I mean, he was doing good for the mm, most of the first round. I mean, he was definitely starting to feel the pressure of Topuria, um, but you know, he did win the first round. I would still say, but it's like, does he fight scared the whole fight? Does he just kick the whole fight? You know, I don't know. Um, so, in my opinion, Volk is an L. That should not be his next opponent. Uh, the next guy, to me, maybe not the next guy, but like another guy would be Max. I think Max is honestly a good fight for him. On one hand, it's another good win for Topuria if he does win. On the other hand, I could see Max just being a veteran out there. I mean, he's only 32, which is what, like 5 years older than Topuria. Topuria's 27. Um, but he's been in the game for a really long time. He's taken like, what, I think the numbers are 2,000 strikes in his career. You know, he's been in the game for a while. But the, I mean, one thing that Holloway has is he has had a lightweight fight. I mean, so did Volk. But the difference between Volk's first fight with Islam and Max's fight with Dustin is his fight with Dustin, there was hardly any grappling. Whereas Volk, I mean, he had like two or three solid rounds of grappling. So, in terms of the amount of strikes that he had to take from a lightweight, um, Max had way more. And I mean, he got hit with some good shots, but um, like you could tell the shots were affecting him, but he didn't really get hurt, I would say. So if you wanted to really add some legitimacy to Max's chin, yeah, I think that's definitely a solid point to make. But more than anything, I just think his last fight with Arnold Allen was so good in terms of, like, yeah, Allen had some moments, but it seemed like Max could always adjust. He just has such, to me, he has one of the best fight IQs in the entire. Like, I'm just talking about in the sense of like, I don't even think his corner is helping him at times. He's just that sharp. He's just that. His fight IQ is just that good where he can make those adjustments on his own, honestly. And you know, he did at times make those adjustments against Volk in their fights. I think just uh, just the second fight, it affected him in the third fight. But like even the adjustments he made in the second fight were perfect, and he executed them so well. Um, just the way he fought Allen though is just. I mean, the whole fight, my heart was fucking pounding because I was just like, I hope one of my favorite fighters does not get knocked out by a new gen guy who I don't think is that caliber to begin with. Um, and he handled himself well. I mean, it was a close fight, but I think the decision was obvious. So just on that alone, and then on top of that, he fights so good from Southpaw. I don't know that Volk has ever fought super well at Southpaw. Like he can, and he obviously switches stances, but if you really notice it, he does not stick to Southpaw for a long length of time. Like he'll switch to southpaw, you know what I mean, do a little hand fighting, little feints and things, a little bit of footwork, but he almost always switches back to conventional, like almost immediately. So I think I think fighting from southpaw is one way to counteract the right hand from Topuria. Because when you really look at it, Topuria has no power in the left. Like, I mean, look at him fight anybody he's ever fought. They don't seem to be that affected by the lead hand as much as the right hand. You know, the issue with most guys is they all try to outbox Topuria because he's known for his boxing, and they think that okay, well, you know, he's a little bit grounded, flat-footed, you could say. You know, so if I just move around a lot and I put the footwork together and all these things, but a big part of outboxing somebody, a lot of times in the typical sense, is you know essentially like let me look like Ali, let me look like Izzy, let me look like Floyd Mayweather, let me look like any of those guys where it's like it's all about being slick, it's all about the footwork, in and out, you pop jab, you know what I mean, all of that kind of stuff. It's just not going to work against Poirier. He's clearly developed his boxing style around that, around people trying to work their way around him and his power. It just doesn't really add up because he's kind of more like a he's a power puncher, but there's the typical power puncher where they're tall, they're big, you know what I mean? They got a long reach, or at least like a reach that's slightly above the average reach in the division. You know what I mean? Like Hagler or Hearns or like if you're talking about heavyweight, like George Foreman. You know, but then there's the power punchers like Javante, like Tyson, like um, who else? Like Manny Pacquiao. You know, these guys that are shorter on the stockier side, but they're a big part of their game plan is having to essentially close the distance to land that good punch. Now, Tapori, he's not really fully comparable to Tyson or Gervonta because they have power in both hands. I swear, I promise you. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I'm so certain that he does not have power in that lead hand. That left hand has no power. It's average. It's an average hand. Maybe he could hurt you and then finish the job with the right hand. Kind of like Pereira. Like he's like the opposite, where he can hurt you with the right hand, but it's the left hand that's going to seal the deal. Um, but he's not like them in that sense, but just in the sense of he's got the power, but he still has to make the journey to get to the finish. Whereas like a guy like Ngannou, he's kind of coasting, just trying to be patient, trying to bide his time, trying to just land that one big punch. He's gonna throw it recklessly. He's gonna throw it carelessly. You could probably counter him in any of those big swings, but a lot of times you're just gonna fight on the back foot, trying to stay away from the power, trying to time them. But guys like that, since they have a decent reach, they don't have to get in the pocket as much. You know what I mean? So there's still that element to Taporia where if you're gonna try and outbox me, I understand that stylistically it's just not gonna work because a guy of that stature has had to develop their entire style around mitigating those styles, those um, the aspects of those styles. So he's gonna be patient because he knows he only needs to land one good shot. But in the midst of all of that, he's still gonna have decent footwork. He might be flat footed, but to be flat footed does not mean that you don't move. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that you can't be quick when you need to be or explosive when you need to be. It just means that you're grounded, so your whole style is based around you essentially having to be connected to the floor to generate enough force to land a good shot. But I just think Max, I guess, kind of contradicting myself a little bit, but if you really look at it, Max doesn't. He throws the jab, he pops the jab, but he's got that brawler in him, like that scrapper in him, where you could say Volk has it a little bit, but he doesn't have it to the level that Max does. And I just think Max is so comfortable in those situations. He's got good head movement. I don't see Taporia if Max level changes to roll under a punch or just level changes just to drop down. Um, I don't see Taporia throwing knees. I don't see him throwing elbows because he believes in his hands. A lot of times, guys, they get so connected to the hands are where my power is, so I'm not gonna sit here and uh, throw anything but that. I'm just gonna stick to the hands and put all my focus into that. So I think if Max uses his head movement, like Volk has head movement, but he's so minimal with it, and a lot of times he uses other skills to avoid strikes instead of head movement. Whereas Max prides himself on his boxing, so he's going to use head movement a lot more. I think he's as safe from knees and elbows against Taporia as he was against Dustin. So in general, I just think if he if he fights from southpaw, the right hand from Taporia is going to have to find another punch to work off of to counter. Whereas if he just fights from conventional because he thinks like, oh, that's like my better stance, that's the one I'm actually accustomed to, then what I mean, he's gonna pop the jab, but the right hand's coming right over the jab. You know what I mean? I've seen Max double jab before. You try and double jab to Poirier, he might knock you out quicker, honestly. So um, that's most of what I think about that fight. Uh, but I still think that Max has a good shot of beating Topuria. I think the reach and the height is the main thing that's going to work against Topuria. He struggled in his first his Dana White Contender Series fight against Zalal, and I look at the skills difference between those two guys in that fight, and I'm just like, there's literally no other reason for him to be struggling against Zalal other than the fact that Zalal is taller and has the range because he was fighting basically the same way that Volk was, and he just couldn't get that distance. He couldn't get the because I mean one thing about being the shorter guy is not only do you have to get past the reach, but in having to punch up, you need even more extension because it's more distance vertically, not just like eye to eye, face to face. So I think that also makes it a little bit difficult for Taporia. And so Max definitely has that advantage as well going for him. The other guy that I'm thinking right now is Mosar. Based on Mosar's last fight, I think that's a pretty good win, pretty easy win for Taporia. You could go over the grappling, but we don't really know how strong Taporia is. He didn't really grapple against Josh Emmett, but maybe it was just a strength thing. But I don't know why Ivloyev was struggling to get those takedowns. Um, I mean, I'm pretty sure that Allen is a very strong guy for the simple fact that I know that his father is like a weightlifter or a strongman or something like that. Um, and so I think he probably does like some kind of like cross training with his dad. And I think for that reason, that's probably where he's getting a lot of his strength from. Other than that, I don't know if it was maybe a technique thing. Maybe Mosar was those were like desperate takedown attempts. But whatever the case was, I mean, Allen just didn't budge. Um, yeah, I mean, if Mofsar can't get the takedowns, there's no point. There's literally no point. So at that point, then he has to strike with him. He doesn't have good enough boxing. I think if the UFC wants to hand Topuria a good win, just give him Evloev. Make that his first title defense. He's gonna win it. I, I have no doubts about that. Um, so as it stands, I think that the guy that is most likely to beat Topuria, for the same reason that I mentioned the height and reach of Zalal and Max Holloway, is Yair. The main reason is Yair does not box. One thing that I've always wanted to see from Yair is a good jab, and he doesn't throw jabs. You know, he's a similar issue as the one I have with Oliveira, is just he doesn't want to throw jabs. He throws a lot of kicks. He's got a lot of weird, unconventional strikes with the elbows. He's very explosive, very chaotic. I think that's a nightmare for Taporia. Um, yeah, I mean, like, if Yair does to Taporia what he did to Korean Zombie, I think we get a new champion. And I think that apparently, I watched Daniel Cormier, Ben Askren, and Cormier said that Taporia mentioned that he doesn't want to fight Max, Ortega, Yair, any of those guys, which is stupid to me. Apparently, he's saying he doesn't want to fight any of the guys that Volkanovski fought, which is so dumb. But it's like, who do you fight? You're gonna fight Josh Emmett again. You're gonna fight Allen. You're gonna fight Mosar. That's it. You know what I mean? Then you're gonna wait for the Sean O'Malley fight. What are you gonna do? Like, you gotta fight Yair. If you don't want to fight Max Holloway, that's stupid. That's a great win. He's, in my opinion, I put I put Max. It's tough because Max has a lot of good featherweight wins, but he's either two or three um, all time featherweights. So I don't see why you wouldn't want to fight Max Holloway. That doesn't make any sense. Um, I guarantee you, if Max somehow beats Gaethje, he's going to change his mind on that. So whether he likes it or not, I mean, if the UFC wants to put him against Yair, it's going to happen. Um, yeah, I mean, if Yair does what Volk did in that first round, every round, plus the elbows, plus the flying knees, you know what I mean? Topuria's going to start shooting for takedowns at that point. Maybe Yair can look for submissions, maybe get a good enough like submission attempt that it makes Topuria back off of the ground fighting. Um, and then the rest of the fight can just mostly be striking, uh, and then like maybe a couple of half-ass takedown attempts, or it just ends in like a, I don't know, maybe Yair knockout head kick. That's one of the main things. Is Yair could definitely, you saw it in the Volk fight. He was landing nice kicks. He was landing the same kind of kicks that Islam ended up knocking Volk out with. I actually think that Islam's team looked at what Yair was doing with the kicks and they said, let's implement that. You know what I mean? Maybe they also were listening to the Mighty Mouse um, breakdown or whatever. But Yair can definitely knock out Taporia with a head kick. I can definitely see that happening. Keeping him at range with body kicks, with teeps as well, and making it a nightmare for Taporia. That's the fight I want to see. If not his first fight, it should be his fight after Mofsar, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, I think if anybody deserves a title shot, it's Max. If anybody can beat Taporia, it's Yair. Um, but time will tell. We'll see. So that's the whole video. Um, yeah, I look forward to some more videos on. I'm gonna do another one on Volk, another one on Pereira. Maybe I'll do another video on my current favorite fighters. And thank you. Have a good night or a good day.